Gaius is a character who we've seen since season 1 of The Chosen, episode 1 of The Chosen, and this is his episode. I'm just going to say that. This is one of the best written episodes of The Chosen in the entire series. Season 4, episode 4 is about Gaius for me, at least in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's other stuff that's going on here with Rhema or Big James and John or different things going on, but Gaius, man, does he make this episode feel so good. So we've been having, talks about the theories for Gaius for years now of what is going to happen with him. Who is he going to turn out to be? Is he the Gaius from later on in the New Testament, which I think that I would write it that way for my version of The Chosen, but I don't know if Dallas is going to do that or not. There's a lot of questions that we have here for sure. But let's jump into this. Let's look at all the scenes that he's in and look at the scripture that's associated with them. Let's talk about all of it because there's some really, really cool things that goes on here. Now, obviously, we're picking up directly where we left off with
Quintus Benedictus Dio, having sworn the sacramentum to Caesar, the Senate, and the people of Rome, to lawfully fulfill the conditions of service as praetor of Galilee, on pain of punishment, and found guilty of the murder of a citizen under your charge.
Now, this is a pretty big deal. Obviously, Quintus is being informed basically what's going to be happening to him. So he's not being put in prison. He's not being killed for this, right? Obviously, Jews are kind of lesser than to the Roman Empire, but this is not something you can just go around and do, right? Like Quintus is not allowed, even though he's the head here, he's not allowed to just go and murder people. So Rome right here is recognizing that Quintus did make a mistake. He did do something wrong, and they're going to punish him for it, but it's not a real punishment. It's more of a demotion here.
You are hereby reduced in rank, gradus diectio, and relegated to lesser service, milita mutatio.
So he's relegated to lesser service, milita mutatio. Now, milita mutatio basically means you're being demoted. That's essentially what that means. And so here we're seeing as Quintus is being demoted to a lesser level. We don't really know what that level is. It could be, and I'm pretty sure it is, going to be a centurion. This is what he threatens to do to Gaius in the previous episode. And I think Quintus's situation that he's put himself in is so bad that he could be demoted all the way down to centurion. And now, what happens if he is demoted down to centurion? Well, quite clearly, I think they're setting up Quintus to be the centurion at the cross who recognizes that Jesus is the Son of God. A lot of people are debating right now whether that's going to be Atticus or if it's going to be Quintus. And I think it's going to be Quintus, unless they just have some random Roman guy do it, right? I almost certainly think it's going to be Quintus serving in Jerusalem as a centurion of some sort. I don't think we've seen the end of Quintus. It would be my guess, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see where it goes from here, but who knows? So,
to be determined at tribunal.
Atticus takes off this necklace. This is kind of like the defining feature of a praetor. This allows you to have authority, basically, and people recognize you as who you are. Kind of like a centurion's uniform. This is what makes the praetor a praetor. Then we see Gaius coming in. And Gaius is super confused, I'm sure. He's like, what is going on? Am I going to get in trouble? How much trouble am I going to get in? Am I going to die? What's going on here? And then now he's even more confused. He's like, okay, you're taking off my handcuffs? Okay.
Festina Lente. Congratulations. Praetor Gaius.
I love that look for sure. So remember, this is previous to our time skip that we see later on, whenever Jesus is like healing the man with the possession or the blind man and all that different stuff. There's a time skip that happens right after this for at least a few months. So this is like 3 or 4 months later is the next time that we see Gaius after he's gotten comfortable in his position and is basically turning the ship around of Capernaum. So let's jump there next and talk about our next scene here with Gaius as he calls Matthew to come and meet him. And of course, Peter goes along with him here to talk to him. So let's jump in.
Praetor.
Praetor?
Now here they're wondering, they're like trying to decide what is going on here. The Chosen was really smart during the behind the scenes, during this scene in particular. When I was looking at the behind the scenes of this moment over a year ago, they only showed the feet of Gaius here. And so we all assumed that this was Quintus and that Matthew and Peter were talking to Quintus, not Gaius. And so obviously it was a surprise a bit later on whenever Gaius did become praetor. And we see that happening here.
Please. Please sit. Thank you for coming.
You couldn't send word of what the nature of the summoning was?
Absolutely not. Peter.
Peter.
Am I pronouncing that right? I have it written down here. Someone brought it to my attention.
Ah, close. It's a little softer. Peter.
Peter. You're a seafaring man.
Was, eh?
You still know how to tie the knots. When the sky is red at dawn,
We would expect there to be storms.
when you look south to Jerusalem, there is a very, very red sky this morning. The edicts coming out of Judea from your religious leaders.
So they're sending out more edicts that Gaius is now receiving and having to basically decide what he's going to do. Now, these religious edicts don't mean anything for Gaius, but he knows that these are going to be trouble later on in Jerusalem for specifically Jesus and the group, right? So he's trying to protect them here, and he's trying to use Peter's fishing analogies to do so, to show them exactly what's going on.
Are serious. More threatening than before.
How threatening?
The Pharisees here are watching your every move, actively trying to trap your rabbi in his words or actions. And I am telling you, they want him gone.
Gone?
Silenced. Censored. Worse. I don't know. You tell me, what is the precedent?
I don't know, maybe... the baptizer?
No, the Pharisees didn't kill John.
Herod is one of your people, acclaimed king, and Galilee is his jurisdiction. The point is, there is someone watching both of us very closely.
Yeah, because if Gaius makes the wrong move here, right, as a Roman soldier as well, as a part of Rome, they're going to take him out of this position as fast as they put him in, because he's got to be serving Rome, not these Jewish people.
Me and you?
Me, this whole town, and especially your group. Atticus, Aemilius, Pulcher, a cohortes urbanae has taken a special interest in Jesus, and he is monitoring activity in Capernaum.
You know, when we left the house, Jesus told me to prepare for a journey. Maybe that's why he's no longer safe here.
I am under pressure to crush any religious extremism or fringe uprising leaders swiftly and lethally.
And Rome wants him to do that because they don't want any problems, right? They don't want these messiahs to start rising up and gathering these groups and, eventually going to war with Rome, right? That's what they're worried about. And of course, it's happened several times in the past as different groups have risen up and tried to take out Rome. And it's going to happen after this point, right? In a couple of years, whenever a big uprising happens later on, which of course, their fears become a reality. So it's not unwarranted, right? Rome definitely wants to protect its kingdom, its empire. And Gaius is going to be a part of that for sure. He's going to want to keep that control, even if he disagrees with some of this stuff here.
If I don't, or if I even hesitate.
What? They'll fire you? I didn't expect you to get a taste for power so quickly.
Worse, they might suspect that I believe in him.
Okay.
He goes, good one, yeah.
Wait.
Jesus will be safe here, I can assure you that. But only if he keeps a low profile.
That's not gonna happen. A year ago, sure, he was forbidding people he healed from telling anyone about it, but now it can't be contained. Were you being serious?
I'm not telling you to stop his mission. Just do it outside the city limits, okay? That's all I'm asking for his safety and yours. Now I need you to work with me on this.
Prida, do you believe in him?
I'm not even sure what that means.
Why haven't you gone to see him if you are considering?
I have seen enough. I have seen what he does for those who can be of no help to him whatsoever. I have heard him say words that both unscramble a lifetime of mystery and fill me with questions. The fact that I have seen him is why I'm doing everything.
Has your son gotten any better?
What?
It was a while ago, he was very ill. Did he get better?
I love how Matthew's confused here because in some ways, Peter is closer to Gaius than Matthew is, right? Because Peter has had this time where he's spent with Gaius getting to know him as a human, whereas Matthew, most of the time that he's spent with Gaius is really not, right? Yes, there's been a few times where Gaius has checked in on him or met him in the street or whatever, but the majority of the time that he's known Gaius, he really didn't know anything about him at all, other than he was supposed to protect him in the toll booth, right? Or the tax booth. And so I love this kind of little look of jealousy from Matthew, almost looking at Peter like, how do you know that?
No.
Son? Something is wrong with Marius?
Then why haven't you brought him to see Jesus? You say you've seen him do things for people who can be no help to him, so why wouldn't he do this for you who are risking your life and career to protect
He
him?
doesn't need my protection. I just don't want his mission delayed by posturing and infighting.
You know, some believe his mission is to overthrow Rome.
I'm sorry, why does Jesus need to see Marius?
Matthew, I made a mistake that resulted in a child born.
This is almost like going over the birds and bees with Matthew. It's just like a super awkward moment here.
Or not of my wife.
Doesn't that happen to your people all the time?
Ooh.
I apologize, but
I love the dynamic between Peter and Matthew because Peter is no longer like, man, this guy's an idiot. I can't talk with him. Like, he's trying to be nice. He's trying to be friendly with him. He's like a brother to him now, right? But he's still like embarrassed when Matthew says something like that. But before we get to that, I want to invite you to go to Israel with us. I know that these videos are great and you're learning a lot through this series, but there is nothing like being there in person and seeing exactly what happens in Israel. What there is to learn, and the people to meet, the food to eat, everything. This next trip that I've planned is the cheapest that I can possibly get these trips. Normally they're $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000, but my trip here is less than $4,000. We'd love for you to be a part of it, and if you can at all sign up, there's a link down in the description down below, or you can take your phone's camera and point it at this QR code and it'll take you directly to the site. From there, you can check out our brochure and see exactly what we're doing, and you can even save your spot with a $500 deposit. As you're seeing here, we had some of the most amazing moments in our last trip to Israel, and we'd love for you to be part of the next one. So don't wait, sign up today. Spots are limited as always, and let's get back to the video.
At the risk of an even greater offense, sometimes people are inclined to perceive judgment because they feel guilty.
I feel guilty for betraying my wife.
Do you feel repentant?
For that, yes. And I love my son.
And he's ill.
For a long time.
Yeah, by this point, it's got to be like over a year that he's been paralyzed. So I wonder how they're even keeping him alive. Like, he seemed like he wasn't moving at all last time we saw him, but maybe he's just asleep. So maybe he's just really, really, really weak, and they feed him every day and give him water and stuff. But I wonder how they've kept him alive for so long in the condition that he's in.
Yes.
Then why haven't you gone to see Jesus,
I
Gaius?
know you thought about this. You told your family about a Jewish doctor.
Because I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
Neither was I.
Neither was I.
You do not know the things I have done.
You know, that's exactly what I said.
I'm an outsider.
One of his favorite kinds of people.
Someone who is not Jewish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those dividing lines don't matter to him. It's part of the reason why he's in so much trouble.
Guys,
I love how Matthew says that with confidence here, but in a second we're about to see the scene where he's like, maybe we shouldn't bring a Roman to Jesus. So he immediately second guesses that thought, which is really interesting.
do you believe he's from God?
And I wonder how he navigates that that question as well, right? Like, do you believe he's from God? That's a question that's going to hit differently for a Jew than it is a Roman, right? Obviously, he understands a little bit about the Jewish God and what's kind of going on there, but he doesn't fully understand, I'm sure, the difference between the pantheon and all these different things. I'm sure he doesn't have a good grasp on who Yahweh is. So I wonder how that would really play out in real life, because I'm not sure that it would in the same way that we're seeing here with Gaius, at least not as ideally here.
I know it must seem intimidating.
And there, Dominus.
That's my favorite line. There, Dominus.
There's no need to be afraid.
I do believe.
You're happy crying?
I know he can heal my son. Will you let me ask him?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
This part's hilarious. He just knows immediately Matthew is not going to give him a hug.
Okay, quick.
Okay, quick.
Okay. All right, that's enough, huh? We haven't even gone to see him yet.
It's a great point. Why were you standing here? My son is as good as healed.
All right, so my son is as good as healed. That's kind of where we get into the next section of where we're going, where we see them coming into the house of Peter here. And of course, that line is incredibly important. My son is as good as healed. That means that he truly does believe that Jesus is the answer here, that he is the one that is going to heal his son, and that he knows that it's going to happen. This is a really, really big thing that's about to happen. In Scripture, we see that Jesus says that nowhere in all of Israel have I seen such faith. That means that not only does Gaius have more faith than Israel, the people of Israel, the Jewish people, right? But also it's kind of like a dig towards his own apostles in a way, showing that he has more faith in a way that's different than even his apostles have. It's very, very clear here that this is a unique and crazy thing, right? This is one of the couple of times in scripture where Jesus marvels at something happening. And so we're going to see that here in this scene.
I'm the first Jew to willingly lead a Roman soldier to his house.
I'm the first soldier to be led.
Now we should stop looking so happy or we'll both get in trouble. Wait here, I'll make sure he's inside.
Peter, I'm realizing we're bringing a Roman to see Jesus, and he didn't give us permission or ask us
By
to.
now, we've both seen enough to know that this is what Jesus would want.
So again, there, Matthew kind of second guesses himself. He's like, wait, I know that Jesus doesn't see these dividing lines, but I do. You know, we're bringing a Roman to go see Jesus. He didn't give us permission to do that. Should we be doing this?
Yes, this way. Praetor Gaius.
Lord.
Yeah. I love that small moment right there. We see Gaius says Lord, and then we see Jesus' reaction to that. So what this person would have been saying here, the actual centurion that came and asked Jesus, however he phrased it here, right? When he says Lord, he's saying the Greek word, I think it's pronounced like Kyrie or Kyrie. And so what he's saying here is that word basically means Lord, it means master, it means owner. But in this case, he's using it in a way that approaches divinity. Okay. And so when he says the word Lord, it's not just saying my master. It's not just saying someone who I respect, someone who has authority, but he is literally giving Jesus the authority and divinity that he deserves. And so this is a really, really big deal, especially for a centurion or a Roman leader, a Roman official, right, to have this perspective here. Now, this story in particular is a couple of different stories melded together, I believe, from the Gospels, where in one version we see a Roman official, and in another version we see a centurion. And so we've got a couple of different scriptures to look at when it comes to that. But here, regardless of all of that, this person who is supposed to be an enemy of Jesus is coming to him and giving him exactly the respect that he deserves that many other people are not giving him, especially people within the Jewish faith, right? And so that word there is really, really important. That response from Jesus is so good. And everybody's having a hard time, like, kind of coming to what just happened here.
My servant boy is lying paralyzed at home. He has been sick for so long, and now he is suffering terribly, near death.
Take me to him.
Lord. You call him Lord?
I love Nathaniel. Remember, Nathaniel is like no BS. He's just like straight up gonna tell you what's going on. So even in the middle of this moment, he's like, you're calling him Lord? Like, what is happening here? How? Why? What?
I am not worthy to have you come into my home, and I know you would not be comfortable as a Jew in a Roman's home.
And why is that? Let's think about that for a second. We're going to get into this in a little bit, but why would Jesus not feel comfortable as a Jew in a Roman's home? Okay, there's a lot of different reasons, but the main reason, my guess is that every single wall when he walks in is going to be covered in Roman gods and goddesses. And so this is a pretty big deal. We're going to talk more about this in a little bit, but of course he wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Of course he would feel uncomfortable.
But you only need to say the word, and he will be healed.
I'm not worthy.
The truth about the child, he's actually my son. I am so ashamed I shouldn't even be asking you, but I am. And I know you can do it.
Master, I never thought I'd say this, but he is worthy to have you do this for him. He loves our people. He has helped us.
And the thing is, like, it doesn't matter if he's worthy, right? Like, that's what we've been learning all throughout the Chosen, all throughout, like, watching these different things. Little James is worthy of Jesus healing him, but he still didn't. Why? Because God is God and his ways are his ways, right? Was Rama not worthy of being resurrected, right? Was Rama not worthy of being healed? No, not necessarily, right? It just has to do with how God wants to do things, and he is going to decide how this all works. But I do wonder how this conversation here is going to affect Thomas as well. Thomas, throughout all the past few months, as they've been traveling throughout the land, and they're seeing people, be exorcised of their demons, and they're seeing people being healed, and all this other stuff is happening. I wonder how Thomas's response to that has been for all of these, and even in this moment.
I know. Do not trouble yourself. You can heal him from a distance with only a word of command. I also have
I love how surprised Jesus looks there. It's just so funny.
authority with men under me. If I say to one, go, he goes. If I say to another, come, he comes. Anything you command in this world will happen. I know it. Even this.
And again, this points to the scripture that we're talking about here, because Jesus marvels at him. Jesus was in awe of this moment, seeing his faith coming from this Roman during this time when everybody else seemed to be walking away from him, right? It's such a cool moment here.
Stand up. What? Rise.
So good, so good.
Did you all hear this, man?
He's like, you guys need to learn from this guy. Especially you, Judas.
Truly, I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith.
That's a huge dig towards them, right? Like, all of these guys who are supposed to be like these big pillars of faith and stuff, right? It's a pretty big dig for them to be like, oh, in all of Israel, I haven't found such faith as this. Like, this is pretty crazy.
I was rejected in my own hometown, and I'm threatened by the religious leaders of my own people. And yet this man, a Gentile, has more bold confidence in what he believes that I can do than anyone I have yet encountered.
Yeah, so good.
Go. It has been done for you according to your belief. Thank you.
All right, let's watch through this real fast when we go to Matthew chapter 8. So here's the first passage we'll look at. These are very similar as we talk through them, but there's a couple of small differences that are kind of important. So this is Matthew chapter 8, verse 5. When he had entered Capernaum, a centurion came forward, appealing to him. Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, suffering terribly. And he said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion replied, Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to one, go, and he goes, and another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. And when Jesus heard this, he marveled. And he said to those who follow him, truly, I tell you, with no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from east and west and recline at the table of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the sons of the kingdom will be thrown into outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This is something that they did not add here. And again, it's not because, I think it's because they're trying to serve a specific purpose for this storyline here. But this is incredibly important as well. Remember the understanding of the kingdom of heaven and what is going to be happening there. But there are many from all over the place, east and west. He's talking about the Gentiles. He's not talking about just the Jews, right? There are many from the east, which would include all of the Arab nations and all the things that are over there, right? There are many from the west, which would include all of Rome and all the people over there, right? Who are going to come and they're going to sit at this table of our fathers. And yet the people who you think are the first in line to get there, the Jews, a lot of them will be thrown out into outer darkness, right? Those sons will be thrown out, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And this is so sad to hear, right? For the kingdom there. And yet, this is the truth of what's kind of going on. So that's Matthew 8. In Luke chapter 7, we see another version of this, right? We see after he had finished all these things in the hearing of the temple, he entered Capernaum. Now a centurion had a servant who was sick at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. And so when the centurion had heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews asking him to come and heal his servant. So this is basically the same exact story, but there's one big difference here where in Matthew chapter 8, the centurion goes directly to Jesus and has this conversation with him. However, in Luke chapter 7, this man asks the elders of the Jews to go and talk to Jesus, and then later on in this passage, he asks his friends to go and talk to Jesus on his behalf. This is a very common thing during the time in the first century, where if someone were to ask a partner or another person to go and have a conversation on their behalf, it may have been written down as if that person actually went in the first place. So I believe that what actually happened is that he actually sent other people to go and talk on his behalf. However, in Matthew, it's recorded as if he came himself. That's not a contradiction. It just shows that basically in Matthew, he's taking it as if the person had gone on his own. But in Luke, it's more accurate in saying that he actually sent people to go talk to Jesus along the way, if that makes sense. So let's read this. And then when Jesus came, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built our synagogue." The same logic happens right here, right? He is the one who built us our synagogue. Well, this centurion didn't literally build their synagogue. The Jews would have built the synagogue themselves, but he probably had it ordered to be built, or he helped to pay for it, or he helped to get the city to pass it to pay for it, right? He's not literally the one that built the synagogue, most likely, right? So it's the same kind of understanding here. When we say he built the synagogue, they're not actually saying that. They're saying he helped us to build the synagogue, right? Which is the same thing as when he's sending people to go talk to Jesus, or if he is talking to Jesus, if that makes sense. And Jesus went with them, and when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am unworthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you, but say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man under authority, with soldiers under me." And the same thing happens here, right? And then again at the end he says, "I tell you, not even in all of Israel, have I found such faith." And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. So that is the passage that we're seeing here when it comes to Gaius kind of, going to Jesus and seeing this. Now, his name in scripture is not Gaius, but in The Chosen, we're definitely seeing this play out. I think also in this scene as well, we're also mixing in not just these two passages about the centurion, but also another passage about the Roman official whose son is sick. And so in these two passages, we see that the centurion has a sick servant, but the Roman official who we see in the other passage actually has a sick son. But that's a slightly different passage there that we're seeing that. So let's continue on. We've got a couple more things that I want to look at here as we finish this scene.
Thank you. You've brightened my day to encounter this kind of faith.
So he leaves out of here. From here, he goes on to this section right here, which is one of my favorite sections. Let me get past this part.
What? Rabbi!
3 cucumbers.
So he's grabbing a bunch of supplies to get ready to celebrate with his family. He grabs some food and some wine. He grabs some toys. Now I love this section right here. He actually pays the vendor. And then as each vendor offers to give him back change, he doesn't take it. Again, this is like a service, right? He's trying to be as kind as he can. So the vendor tries to give him back change. He doesn't accept it, and he continues on here, going back home towards his family. Now we see to the next scene here. We're going to jump through. Don't worry, we'll come back and talk about this scene as well. But we've got this scene right here. We'll see as Gaius returns home. So this is slightly inaccurate, and I'm sure they do this for a very specific reason. So this part of the house is called the lorarium, and this is basically the main entrance to a Roman house. This would have been the place where all of the gods and goddesses, the statue of Caesar, the paintings of whoever, this is where those all would be. Now, they wouldn't actually have used candles like this. I don't think candles existed in this way back in the 1st century. Often what they would use is oil lamps, just like the Jews used, in fact, clay or possibly metal, but mostly probably clay. Oil pots, basically oil lamps, where you would have a lamp that was filled with oil, then you'd have a wick that goes in, and actually, do I have one? I do have one. 1 second, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So it would actually be like this. So if you can see that, you see the oil would go inside, then you have a wick that would come right here out on the top. And these are handmade from Israel, but this is exactly how it would be. So he shouldn't be blowing out candles. He should actually be blowing out these. These are kind of more accurate from where they should be. And I could use these right now. Just fill them up with oil, let the wick suck up the oil, and then light that tip right there, and it would work just like a lamp or whatever else. So he should be blowing out oil lamps, not candles, but that's not a huge deal, obviously. But what you're seeing here, if we go back a little bit, is all of these gods and goddesses that he has set up. So each one of these candles is in front of several different statues. So what we're probably seeing here are gods like Zeus and Poseidon and Ares, and all of these different gods and goddesses that house these beliefs of what they had. Okay, and so the first thing that Gaius does is kind of blow out these shrines and make them inactive, right? With these candles lit, or with the oil lamps lit, this would have been kind of like a time when they were revering these gods, and maybe the wife was at home and she lit these candles in order to try to get their son to be healed, right? But when Gaius blows out these candles, it's really, really important to understand that the boy being healed has nothing to do with these candles, right? Has nothing to do with these gods and goddesses. And immediately as the wife comes out, she's going to recognize that it wasn't because they prayed to these gods and goddesses, it was because something else happened, right? And of course, we don't really get to see the whole story of that, but that's going to be a huge part of what we're actually seeing here. Now, if we continue on, we see this section over here, and this I don't believe is a god or a goddess, but this is supposed to resemble Caesar himself. So I think this is an altar to the emperor, and of course in Rome they would have seen the emperor as a god essentially, and so they were to worship him, they were to lift him up, they were to treat him as if he was a god, and so that was a major section here.
Gaius!
And then on the back wall there, you can see as well, this is some version of Poseidon or Asclepius or something like that. Looks like Poseidon to me. Looks like the same mythological creatures, kind of like half horse, half fish creatures that he would have with him. And these maidens next to him that were kind of, his daughters and things like that. And so, yeah, again, we're seeing more of this culture kind of coming out, and I wonder what would change in Gaius's home over time, but we don't really get to see that at all here.
You're not going to believe it.
I do believe it.
What? What?
I already know.
Daddy, look!
And there the boys are.
Shalom.
What?
It's something that my friends say. It means peace, wholeness. Okay?
And you can see the wife looks around while he's doing this, and she's recognizing that all the candles are put out.
Whole again.
Child.
And I wonder how long he's been paralyzed. Obviously he's miraculously healed, but like, would his legs be atrophied? Like, those are the questions that go through my head,
Shalom.
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 She recognizes that all of these have been put out. Now we can see all of those different figurines that are in front. Now, what's really interesting here, that of course, The Chosen does an amazing job with set design, and they've obviously pointed this out on purpose to us. But we see not only do we have the candles, which probably would have been oil lamps, but we also see a ton of other things that are going on here. The oil lamps being activated would have been a type of ritual that they would have done in order to pray to these gods, but also they would give them fruit. So you're seeing like a pomegranate, and it looks like oranges there as well. Those would have been part of the offerings that they would give these gods and goddesses in their home in order to praise them, in order to pray to them, in order to keep their, rituals and stuff going. There's also some other things on there that basically would have been for them to, acknowledge these gods and goddesses. And I would guess that Gaius's wife was probably really, really into this, trying to have their son be healed, because even though it's not her son, she probably cares about him quite a bit.
Shalom. Shalom.
Say it twice.
Shalom. Shalom.
That's it. Well done.
That's huge as well. So it looks like Gaius' whole family will be saved, most likely. And that's obviously a massive, massive thing here. Now, before we get to the last scene, I will talk about as well, throughout all of this section and throughout all the live stream, Dallas is saying that Gaius is the first convert, at least within The Chosen. Now, I think biblically, a lot of people will say that Cornelius is later on in the book of Acts. However, obviously, the centurion happens way before the book of Acts, way before crucifixion, all that kind of stuff. So I would agree that there's probably some different people, especially in the Roman Empire or different areas, that would have come to Jesus outside of, the Jews that would have followed Jesus as the Messiah or whatever else. I don't think that Gaius can be called the first convert even in The Chosen, because we have Tamar, right? So Tamar is a Gentile. She's been telling us that for the last several seasons, right? It's a big part of her story. And so she obviously converts at some point as well. So she has to be the first convert from Gentiles. No? If I'm wrong about that, let me know. But that's kind of my thought there. Let's jump back in, go to this last section here as we go and look at Jesus in the Olive Grove. This is a really interesting section here. Probably shouldn't have moved it all. Probably should just let it play. Here we go.
My sides are filled with burning. There is no soundness in my flesh. I am feeble in Christ. Grown because of the tumult of my heart.
So if you could not hear what he's saying here, let's jump into scripture. He's actually reading, or he's reciting Psalm 38. Now, parts of Psalm 38 will not apply to Jesus, but he's just reciting it. He's not saying that this is necessarily 100% talking to him, because I say that because there are parts of Psalm 38 that talk about sin. So, for example, Jesus starts here. He says, "For your arrows have sunk into me, and your hand comes down to me. There is no soundness in my flesh because of your indignation. There is no health in my bones because of my sin." Now, he doesn't actually say this line in The Chosen, because obviously Jesus has no sin. And so they skip over that line. They say this first line here, and then they jump down to the heavy burden, they are too heavy for me. And then it jumps down even further to, "For my sides are filled with burning, and there is no soundness in my flesh. I am feeble and crushed. I groan because of the tumult of my heart. O Lord, all my longing is before you. My sighing is not hidden from you. My heart throbs, my strength fails me, and the light of my eyes, it also has gone from me. My friends and companions stand aloof from my plague, and my nearest kin stand far off." This is basically Jesus looking at God and saying, "I feel alone. I feel like nobody understands where I sit. And even though I describe all day long to my disciples about what they're supposed to do and who they are and where I'm going and what's going to be happening to me, even though I do that, they still don't understand. And yet this Gentile comes in, this Roman guy comes in, and he actually gets it." Right? Like, finally, someone who understands, and it's not even someone that I'm trying to teach. It's just someone who gets it, right? And so that's basically what's kind of going on here, is Jesus feeling the weight of what's going on. But of course, in this scene here, there's a lot more to it than that. So let's jump in here and look at it again.
Oh Lord, all my longing is before you. My sighing is not hidden from you. My heart throbs. My strength fails me. The light of my eyes, it also is gone.
Again, it's really hard to hear what he's saying there, but I did just read it to you. Psalm 38 there.
My friends and companions stand aloof from my plague.
So he's reading the last few lines there. My friends and companions stand aloof from my plague is what he just said. And then he'll finish it off with, and my nearest kin are far off.
And my nearest kin stand far off.
So here we're seeing for the first time really the process of making olive oil. These are olives, obviously, that they've pulled from the olive grove that Zebedee runs, right, with the girls. There's a bunch of different types of olives in there, different ripenesses and firmnesses, right? As well as some of the leaves from the trees. They've got them in a big bucket there, and we see that Zebedee is grinding them. And then we see as Tamar is taking those ground olives and she's putting them in the baskets to be pressed. So this is exactly like they would have done it in the first century. This is very well done. You see as the olives go into the sides of the basket. And there's a hole down the middle of the basket so that you can stack them on one another on a pole. And that's how you press it there. So you see him pressing the olives. Or crushing them, rather. Now, there's a lot of symbolism here.
Zeb, we're ready for the first stone.
Ah, I love this part.
So you see as they're getting ready to press it, this, okay, I have to say, listen, there's so many good things I say about The Chosen. This part right here, why couldn't we just get a heavy stone and actually use a heavy stone? You can tell so easily that this is like a fake stone made of like styrofoam or something. Heavy stuff does not move this way, right? And you wouldn't carry heavy stuff in this manner. So you see Zebedee trying to move this stone, and it just takes me out of this scene every single time I see it. Just the way that the stone moves is just so fake, and this close-up shot is the same way. You can just tell immediately it's not heavy because of the way it's swaying on the rope or the way that he's picking it up. It's just a weird thing there.
First press, sacred unto Adonai alone.
So the first press to Adonai alone, this is a big deal. So remember what happens to Jesus later. This is a foreshadowing to the Garden of Gethsemane, okay? But it's also showing what's happening to Jesus right now. So in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prays 3 times. That's very intentional in the symbology of what's happening there. Gethsemane, literally Gethsemane, means the oil press or the olive press, okay? And so when Jesus is in the olive press, he actually goes and he prays. That's the first press. Then he comes back, he talks to the apostles. He goes back again and he prays. Then he comes back again, he talks to the apostles. Then he goes back again and he prays for a 3rd time. And those are the 3 presses. Whenever you press olive oil, you generally do it in 3 presses. And so especially during the 1st century, this was a big deal where you would have the first press is kind of like the extra virgin olive oil, right? And then you have more and more presses later. By the time you get to the 3rd press, this oil is pretty crude, and it's used for like lamps and things like that because it burns a little bit dirtier, and so you're using it for other things. And so Jesus is here, and we're being shown the first press of this area here, and I think that's indicative of Jesus starting to feel the pressure of what is going to happen to him as he gets closer and closer to the cross. And so we're not seeing all 3 presses kind of going through here and being like illustrated here, because I think they're going to use this illustration later on for the Garden of Gethsemane. But I do think that we're seeing the beginning of that pressure on Jesus here, which is being indicated here by the olive press. And again, each stone adds more weight, which equals the next type of press there. So not every like single press that he's doing on here is a press of the olive press, but the more weight that you add, the more juice you can kind of get out. And we see Jesus sweating as well. That's obviously pointing towards the garden as well. And then also the redness of this oil. I don't know if they're trying to say that this is used as not only an olive oil press, but also a wine press. It's kind of too red, I think, to be pure olive oil coming out of here. Maybe not. Maybe olive oil would stain red like that. I don't really know, but anyway, definitely they're pointing towards Jesus's blood though, for sure. So here again, we see the fake stone being put on. It just takes me out I have to point it out. Like, I can't not point it out. It just takes me out every time. Again, a close up on Jesus' sweat here. That's very specific why they're doing that. Third press. Then we see Gaius show up. I'm going to turn on the music just in case copyright for YouTube stuff. It's quite annoying. But yeah, we've got Gaius coming up. And of course, he's here to thank Jesus. Doesn't recognize what's going on until he sees Jesus' face. And then immediately comforts him, which is an amazing ending to this episode for sure. We see a massive, massive change in Gaius and what's going on here. Such a cool moment with him for sure. So love this moment. Love Praetor Gaius. Although this isn't a spoiler, but you'll see very soon. We're probably not going to see much more of Gaius, I would assume, throughout the rest of the series. Because season 5 is Holy Week. Holy Week takes place in Jerusalem. Season 6 is a literal 24-hour period in Jerusalem, right? And then season 7, we could see him. We could possibly see him in season 7, but in the next 2 seasons at the very least, I don't think we're going to see, if at all, we're going to see very little of Gaius. So, yeah. Beautiful moment, beautiful cinematography. And again, the music is pointing towards this ominous direction that Jesus is going towards his doom, right? Towards salvation ultimately, but well, towards our salvation ultimately, but towards his doom as well. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening there. But yeah, it's a hard thing for him to go through. I couldn't imagine it. So I hope you like this video. And if you want to see more of the Chosen Season 4 breakdowns or even upcoming Season 5 BTS, then we've got a ton of stuff coming. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.